Surprise!
Hi.
So this is my husband Jason, and I thought that I would have him on this week as we discuss something that's kind of been a topic we've been talking about a lot lately together, and we just wanted to share it with all of you. And it's how to have a happier life. And we actually came up with 8 simple rules based on
8 simple rules for dating my teenage daughter.
which we don't have.
Yeah. So it's 8 simple rules for living a happier life.
And these rules are specifically our rules. They might look very, very different for you. You might like some of these and adopt them. You might not.
So this leads beautifully into rule number 1, which rule number 1 is fuck all the rules.
Nice and simple.
Yeah. The way that I see it is that, every single person has their own life, their own journey, their own experience, their own goals, their own dreams, everything. And not everybody's rules is going to apply to every single person.
Mm-hmm. And by trying to live by somebody else's rules that, you don't find joy in or don't resonate with you, you will end up having a very tough, grumpy, unhappy, unjoy-filled life. And I know that's been our life for such a long time, especially since we started on our own personal development journeys. We've been, learning so much and learning from some incredible mentors, but there have been just some things that don't resonate with us personally or as a couple. And as we tried to force those things into our lives, the more of a wedge it drove between us. We became unhappy, our mental health tanked. And we discovered that, a lot of these things that we learn are general ideas. And how can you tweak those general ideas to work for yourself? So, fuck the rules.
Fuck the rules.
Rule number... Can I do rule number?
Of course you can do rule number 2. Okay. Action.
So rule number 2 is take responsibility. This can seem and feel very intimidating sometimes, especially as when you grow up and you're told, be responsible, take responsibility. It's more of a negative thing. But the truth is, by you taking responsibility in your own life, that actually gives you the power to control the things that are in your control. And you get to actually put up the boundaries and make the choices for yourself that you want to do.
The way that I like to think about it is, it is up to you to take responsibility for everything. Now, that does not mean that you have to do everything yourself. It doesn't mean that, you have to necessarily, care about everything. You just have to be willing to take responsibility for everything that comes into your spheres, everything that affects you. Especially when it comes to your happiness. If you're not willing to take responsibility, especially for your happiness,
you're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because you're at that point outsourcing your happiness to someone else. And the truth is that's not where happiness comes from. That's something you have to cultivate within yourself and work on inside yourself.
Mm-hmm. To piggyback on one of the thoughts that you were saying earlier, the idea of taking responsibility, when you're a kid, people tell you all the time, you need to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility. What they really meant is, hey, I've got this thing that I'm responsible for, and I'm not willing to take responsibility for it, so you should be responsible for it. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but I think that concept is a really good thing to check against ourselves, because sometimes we take responsibility for things that we shouldn't be responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
If it's somebody else's problem, it is their responsibility. But what is your responsibility is, if they're trying to defer that problem onto you, for you to bring that up to them.
Mm-hmm.
and to set clear boundaries around how you're gonna exist in this world.
Mm-hmm. And because we're on the topic of 8 steps to live a happy life,
Rules.
8 rules to live a happy life.
Simple rules.
Let's use our own happiness as an example with this. we have had discussions once we learned about what true responsibility is. I know that I personally had deferred my happiness onto you and expected you to not exactly make me happy, but I was expecting that always just being around you or you would bring me up to this level of happiness that I was just like hoping that it would kind of like stay consistent, and like if you weren't happy then all of a sudden I wasn't happy, and I was just like, no, but like what am I doing wrong and all of that. And the truth is you do make me happy. You make me very, very happy. But I have only ever gotten more happy learning how to make myself happy. And in turn, when you make me happy while I'm happy with myself, it's a whole other level because it's, my cup's full. I get to overflow into your cup. And when you're not in the greatest mood, it doesn't affect me the same way because I know that that's also your responsibility.
Yeah. So rule number 2, take responsibility for everything, especially your own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so simple rule number 3, do more of the little things that make you happy. What do I mean by the little things? So I want to take an example from my life. In my life, for the most part, I'm out in the world working. This summer has been a rare exception to that. For the most part, I'm out in the world working, and a lot of times, I think because I might not have a little bit of ADD, I tend to very much so hyper-focus on the thing that I'm currently undertaking. So when I'm working for somebody else, I'm like 100% focused on like how I can serve them and add value and just be the best like person and employee that I can be. But a lot of times I'll forget to, do the things that bring me joy. So one of the things that I started implementing this past year when I was working for other people is just doing the things that I know spark a lot of joy for me. Even if it isn't related to the bigger thing that I'm trying to accomplish in my life. Like the best example of this is I love to play guitar. I've loved playing guitar since I was a teenager. And if I'm having a rough day, or even if I'm just starting to feel down about what it is that I'm doing, if I inject a little bit more of that happiness into my life, that thing that brings me happiness, which is playing guitar, listening to music, creating things, I am a happier person.
Mm-hmm. And some of those little things for me, which contrasting with you, I've been working from home for the last few years, working on different creative projects. So I'm being an introvert, that fills me up quite a bit already, just working at home alone. However,
Lucky.
going into my point, I would get stuck just working constantly. I wouldn't let myself have any time off. More so, I would just not let my brain shut off. I would just be constantly, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And I stopped doing the little things. And the little things for me are finding a good book to read, lighting a candle in the morning, and just sitting down with my journal. Honestly, since I've started doing that, my mornings and my moods have greatly improved.
And on the plus side, the house smells great.
Yeah, it does. Right now, my morning candle is I think it's a whiskey caramel coffee scented candle. It's amazing. Anyways.
She has good taste and good smells. Scent awareness.
Scent, yeah.
Good sense. She has good sense. Okay.
So other little things are actually taking the evening off to watch a movie or a TV show by myself. I like huddling into my bed with some cozy blankets while you either go play your music or just little things that you find that bring you joy. We find kind of that just taking some time in the evenings to do little things that shut our brains off, bring us joy. Another thing is cooking sometimes. That brings us a lot of joy. It didn't for the longest time, but then we kind of switched to choosing to do a food subscription, which
we're going to talk about it in a minute.
Yeah. It brought back the little spark of joy that we used to have. Like when we were dating and engaged, cooking for us was like our little heaven on earth. And that has only come back within the last like 2 months maybe. So that's really cool.
Rule number 4.
Create a better relationship with money.
The moolah.
Money. It's been quite the journey with money. Money can be terrifying. Having money, having a perceived lack of money, not knowing how money works, the flow. Both of us were raised quite different backgrounds, and we both had horrible money stories.
Terrible.
Even though we viewed others' backgrounds as, quite different, we both still had really bad money stories. And we both had fear around money in very different ways. And it really affected our happiness. And I know that money cannot buy happiness. And money is not this thing that makes life better. But once you understand what money is and how it actually works, once the fear of the money is gone, life really changes.
Mm-hmm. I have a simple little question for you. Are you afraid of a hammer?
No.
So, what is a hammer?
It's a tool.
A tool. Money is a tool. Because money is a tool, you should not ever let it dictate your emotions. Like, you should not be afraid of a tool. You have to be aware of it. You have to be concerned about it. If you're working with power tools, like, they can be dangerous.
They can.
But when used correctly for the right job, it's perfect. I mean, it's the right tool for the job, right? There's different ways of talking about money and thinking about money. In my opinion, it's totally up to you to go out and seek somebody who can help you shift your mindset on money. To be quite honest, if you don't shift it, it's going to kind of haunt you. Not to be the harbinger of bad news.
But yeah, like, it all starts with mindset. And if you do not have a good mindset with money, and there are so many people out there and mentors on social media, on YouTube, podcasts, everything, that can teach you how to shift this mindset of money. And one teacher might work for you, might not work for someone else. But it's the mindset shift that actually makes the biggest difference, because you do not have to make insane tons of money. You do not have to be out of debt. You do not have to be scared of debt. You don't have to, scrimp and save, and you don't have to not buy the things that you want. You don't have to make any huge, insane shifts to actually have a much better relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, the relationship with money does start with your mindset. And the first step is learning to not be afraid of it. And the thing is, money is a tool. It is, not to sound woo-woo, but it is an energy. It likes moving. Money does not like staying in one place, as we have learned in both directions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a really great story on, like, the power of money, or the negative, power of money is, when you and I were first married, for our first anniversary, we flew out to LA, and your dad was there at the time. And if I'm correct, we basically flew out on our last dime. And that was loud. If I'm correct, we basically flew out on our last dime. And we wanted to be in LA so bad because we're both actors. And it was tough, because we were there, we were where we wanted to be, we were, in the right part of the world, but we didn't have the right mindset about, how we could move forward. Like, we did not feel like we could afford to put gas in your dad's vehicle to go to downtown LA to just hang out with people for a day.
Even though we could. We had the money.
Yes.
When we say we went out to LA on our last dime, the trip was our last dime. It wasn't just the tickets. It was like we knew we could afford being there. But as soon as we got there, we were like, well, can't
Oh no,
do
we
anything.
froze.
Yeah. And literally, like, we barely spent any money while we were there. But by the time we came home, most of the money was gone. And we had to, like, get back to work to replenish the stores. And the thing was, like, we could have chosen to go spend that money to build relationships, there was a few premieres that we were wanting to go to, but chose not to because they cost money. We could have gone and, like, networked with people and invested in ourselves with that little bit of money, and eventually it would have come back, and we would have had so many more experiences and happy memories with this money than us actually getting back and being like, oh shit, now we have to go and work our normal people jobs because we got nowhere in LA.
To piggyback on what it is that you were saying there, this segues really great into rule number 5, which is choose to put yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good one. It's a hard one, but a good one.
Yeah. It's tough, honestly. Like, going from chronic people pleaser person here to, like, legitimately sitting down with myself and my thoughts and saying, okay, what is it that I actually want out of the world, out of my life, and everything has been a huge shift for me in my happiness. Because, I don't know, I think, like, I just had this mentality that in order for me to be happy, other people had to be happy around me. And not true. By choosing to put myself first, and what it is that I want to put out into the world, I can then, live and work from a place of my happiness and my abundance overflowing, rather than, this place of like, oh, well, here's my energy, here's, I'm here to help you. Yeah, I have nothing left. It's just like, it was, I'm very glad that I've shifted out of that mindset of having to please other people.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of, I don't know even where the quote comes from or where we've heard it. It's kind of all over the place, but you can't fill from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. And it's so true, because I know that for me personally, I have worked a lot of my life from a place of emptiness and burnout, and it's really made me resent the people who have actually wanted to help. Mm-hmm. I want to help people. I want to serve people. I want to help them be happy, to the best of my ability. But when you are at that place where you have nothing left to give because you're not helping yourself first, it turns into this spiral that just, it really saps you of your happiness. Filling your cup can look different, and it looks different every day sometimes. And that's actually something that you personally need to learn how to do on your own, because the way I fill my cup and the way that you fill your cup is very, very different. Mm-hmm. And especially, you're an extrovert, I'm an introvert. Your cup gets filled very differently than mine. You go out and be with people, you come back and you are just this energetic ball of just happiness. And me, I come back from being out with people. If I'm out for too long or with certain people, I come back and I'm just like done. So yeah, it's very interesting. And once we learned how each of us fills our own cups differently, because in the past, you and I used to try to do exactly the same thing to make us each happy. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't work that way. So trial and error, and we're still trial and erroring it right now. It's a lifelong journey, because at different stages in your life, you will need to fill your cup differently, and it will look different. And that's really cool. And that is one of the amazing things of choosing to be a lifelong learner or student, or just someone who doesn't have a fixed mindset. You're willing and open to just learn and try new things and fail and just keep going.
So rule number 5 is choose to put yourself first. Now, if rule number 5 is to put yourself first, then rule number 6 is
love yourself.
Yeah. You have to choose to love yourself to be really happy.
Yeah. And I know both of us, coming from Christian backgrounds, we have had a lot of differing opinions come at us growing up. And lately we've actually learned that, you do need to love yourself, because if you're always with yourself, that's the one person you're always going to be with. And if you can't properly love that one person that you're always with, how are you going to love anybody else outside of you? If you can only tolerate yourself, how do you think that translates to loving somebody else? Because you truly don't know what love and like true love, compassion, acceptance, grace. I know we are very encouraged to do that with other people in the world around us, which is so, so very important. It really, really is. But we also need that for ourselves, because, we can't just sit around here waiting to be loved. Because, yes, we want that, but it needs to start with us.
I'm feeling a RuPaul moment here. Yeah. If you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love somebody else? It's my rendition. You can. What does loving yourself look like? The only person who can answer that question is you. And sometimes that takes some time sitting alone with your own thoughts. Hard for the extroverts in the room, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it if you seriously choose to
live a happier life. Yeah, and if you find it really, really hard to figure that out or learn how to do it, there are so many people out there who can help you. Counselors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. Honestly, I've been to therapy. I'm going to go to therapy again, and I will continue doing it my whole life, because it really changed my perspective on myself and how I treated myself. And it's, therapy isn't just there for when life's rough. Go to therapy when life is good, so that you have the tools for when life does get rough, because it will inevitably at some point.
Yeah. We're taught this whole concept of unconditional love. And, if you're really going to try and practice unconditional love, the first place to start is in yourself. And if you do choose to start there, people are messy. And it can be really, really tough to sit and face those parts of you that maybe you don't like.
The parts that you don't tell other people. The parts that you're the most ashamed of. The parts that you will sugarcoat for other people. That's the parts where, it really, that's the deep, deep work that ends up having such beautiful results. So.
Love yourself.
Love yourself. Number 7. It's one of our favorites. What is number 7, Jason?
What is number 7? Eat good food. Happy tummy, happy man. That's the old adage, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. Happy wife, happy life. Happy man equals happy tummy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where to begin. But yeah, eat good food. Everybody's got their opinion on what good food is. But what I believe good food is food that makes you feel good. Yeah.
Physically, mentally, dare I say spiritually.
Yeah. A good meal fills your belly and your soul.
Yeah. And, take the time with your food. Take the time making it. Take the time enjoying it. For the longest time, you and I would just make dinner and go watch a show. And once we actually started using our food subscription service, we actually took the time to cook it. The conversations we started having started shifting, which then led to us being like, well, I don't want to go watch a show. I just would rather sit and talk to you during dinner. And honestly, our dinner conversations have gotten so good. We also know that if the food is really good, there is no dinner conversation. But yeah, our dinner time now is such a special time. We turn on some jazz. We pour ourselves a glass of wine.
I was going to say, if you really want to up-level your dinner, pour yourself a glass of wine while you're making it.
Yeah, I light some candles. And we just kind of like get into the dinner making mood, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Dinner time has now become such a special occasion for us, and in the past it used to be a very tedious, frustrating, even though like sometimes we would try meal plans. We would go grocery shopping, buy a ton of food, and have to toss it all within a week because we would just eat out because we didn't want to cook. And we found that, getting a meal subscription plan thing for us has just taken the mental stress off. Every day or the night before, we pick what we're going to have for dinner the next day. And we ended up like randomly talking about it throughout the day and getting excited. And then, when dinner prep time hits, it's like, okay, like this is fun. You get the wine, I get the candles. Like, let's get going.
Mm.
And it has really shifted our evenings, which in turn has shifted our
Mm-hmm.
mornings as well. And, I know we're learning to love food again. We're also just so excited to try and learn about different cultures through their food and just flavor and taste, and food's just amazing.
Yeah, food is awesome. It gives you lots of dopamine, and dopamine makes you happy. So eat good food, and yes, you will be a happier person. Speaking of which, if you want to try one of the meal subscriptions that we're on right now, we've got friend codes that we can give out.
Shoot one of us a DM. Our social media handles are down in the description.
Yep. And we'll get you hooked up with free boxes of food.
Yes.
Because free food is almost as good as good food, if not better.
Yes.
I guess, talking about how we've been able to spend more time connecting, especially during dinner, leads really, really well into the last simple rule that we've got for living a happier life, which is focus on your relationships. Mm-hmm. And especially the relationships that matter to you in your life. Yeah. You could argue that, every single relationship that you choose to put energy, time, and effort into can cause you to be happier. If you choose to put the effort and the energy to make a relationship better, you're going to end up being happier. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't care if it's your spouse or if it's your parents or your siblings or your freaking dog. Like, if you choose to put time, energy, and effort into making that relationship better, it's going to pay you back in dividends as far as the happiness scale goes.
Mm-hmm. And, spending time on those relationships, build up boundaries together, boundaries that help you in your happiness and help them in their happiness as well. Mm-hmm. Because I know for us in the past, we have been open and available to everybody and anything at any time of day or night. And that can very quickly and easily lead to burnout. So we've set up a few boundaries, and our relationships have gotten so much better because the time we choose to spend or choose to interact with people, we're 100% there for them at that time. And it's quite awesome. And the same goes with us, We are learning what our boundaries are with each other. And it's cool because last week, I think it was, we were just kind of having an evening. I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I mentioned that I had a boundary, and you broke it. And a few minutes later, rather than me choosing to continue just letting myself be overwhelmed, I was like, hey babe, do you remember the boundary? And you were like, oh, crap, yes.
My bad.
Yep. I will write my idea down and we'll get back to it later. And we did, and it really helped me. And even just like you saying, oh crap, I forgot, like that took my stress away. And I was just like, wow, like you actually care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That, that whole thing kind of leads back into the idea of taking responsibility And you have to take responsibility for your relationships and take responsibility for your boundaries and also take responsibility for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And the biggest one is take responsibility for your happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So these are our 8 rules, and there are 8 rules for right now, and in the future they may shift because we are shifting and evolving human beings. Do you want to quickly run through them one more time?
Well, yeah. I mean, to piggyback on what it is that you were saying, if you didn't like any of our rules, go back to rule number 1 and fuck the rules.
Fuck them all.
Rule number 2.
Take responsibility for everything.
Rule number 3. Do more of the little things that bring you happiness.
Rule number 4 is create a better relationship with money.
That was a little dramatic.
It's money. It can be dramatic.
Money. Rule number 5 is to choose to put yourself first, which is followed by rule number 6.
Which is learn how to love yourself. And then rule number 7.
Eat good food.
Yes. Which is a very amazing form of self-love. I don't know why we didn't even touch on that.
Yeah.
Food, self-love, match made in heaven. And that leads us to rule number 8.
Which is focus on your relationships.
Yeah. So I hope you got something out of this.
Wait.
Oh.
There's a bonus tip.
A bonus tip.
There's a bonus tip.
What's the bonus tip?
So the bonus tip is move your body. A lot of people will say go do a big, hard, sweaty workout. But it can be just as easy as going out for a walk.
5 minutes, 10 minutes. Do some yoga stretches. It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to break a sweat or get your heart really pumping. Just move your body and breathe.
Yeah, not to get stupid scientific about it, but there's lots of different chemical reactions that happen in your body when you work out, which in turn gives you more of that special fun thing called dopamine.
Mm-hmm. It gives you all the happy chemicals.
Yeah, it gives you the happy chemicals, which, happy chemicals equals happy brain. Happy brain equals happy human. Crazy thought.
Which is what we were talking about today. So I hope that you got some ideas, maybe sparked your brain into coming up with your own rules. It doesn't have to be 8, it can just be 1. Whatever it is, we would love to hear what some of your happiness rules are. So let us know down in the comments. Also feel free to reach out to us via DM on our social medias, and we would love to connect with you.
Thank you so much for having me on your YouTube channel.
Thank you for coming.
A day.
Yes, for the first time. I know you're going to show up again in the future. So.
What?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah. Anyway.
Alrighty.
Yeah, thank you for coming in.
Love you guys.
Love you.
This would be happiness. Take 2.